December 17, 1944, the snow-covered town of Bulge, Belgium. SS Colonel Joachim Peiper, the 29-year-old commander of Germany's elite 1st SS Panzer Division, Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, stood in the town square, watching his men refuel their tanks, but this was no ordinary refueling stop. The tanks were German, the fuel American, and the men pumping it, American prisoners of war. Hitler had launched one last desperate offensive, Operation Watch, on the Rhine. 3 armies, 250,000 men, and 1,400 tanks were ordered to smash through the thin American lines in the Ardennes, seize Antwerp, and split the Allied forces in two. It was the beginning of what we now call the Battle of the Bulge. But even before it began, the German plan was already broken, because the entire offensive depended on something Germany no longer had: fuel. Peiper's Kampfgruppe, his spearhead unit, had already fought for 36 hours straight. They had taken Bulge that morning at 7:30 a.m. The Americans fled so fast they left behind their depot 50,000 gallons of gasoline, enough to refuel Peiper's column of tanks and push onward. Peiper ordered the American prisoners to refuel the tanks themselves, partly because his own men were exhausted, partly because it was humiliating. He believed humiliation was a weapon. But as he watched those jerry cans move hand to hand, he knew every second counted. Without fuel, his panzers were just steel coffins. He had seen that on the Eastern Front. Whole divisions abandoned because their tanks ran dry. And now, in Belgium, history was repeating itself. While waiting, Peiper wandered through the captured depot. He opened a small brown box labeled U.S. Army K-Ration. Inside, ham and eggs, biscuits, chocolate, coffee, sugar, chewing gum, cigarettes, even toilet paper. Everything sealed, waterproof, ready to eat. His adjutant, Hans Neuske, opened one can cold and tasted it. He looked stunned. The food was actually good, far better than what German troops had eaten in months. Peiper didn't say much, but he was doing the math in his head. If every American soldier got 3 boxes a day, that was 30 million rations every day, nearly 1 billion per month. The sheer industrial power needed to make that was staggering. The Germans couldn't even feed their own soldiers properly. Their field rations came in bulk, needed cooking, and were often just hard bread and fat. The Americans were eating like kings, in individual factory-sealed boxes. That little K-ration wasn't just food. It was proof that America's factories were winning the war. At 9:30 a.m., refueling finished. Peiper gave the order to move west towards Stavelot, 14 kilometers away, where intelligence promised a much larger American fuel depot. But the roads were chaos. Mud, refugees, wrecked vehicles. The Americans were fighting a delaying action, blowing bridges, slowing every German advance. When Peiper reached Stavelot around noon, he found the bridge intact. A miracle. His tanks thundered across, clearing American defenses after 3 hours of brutal combat. Now came the moment that could have changed the war. Peiper's men searched desperately for the massive fuel depot they were promised. Millions of gallons that could power his drive all the way to the Meuse River. But they found nothing. No tanks, no storage, no trucks. Just scattered cans along the road. After hours of searching, Peiper assumed the Americans had destroyed or evacuated it. He ordered his column to move on, low on fuel but still pushing west. What he didn't know was that the depot was right there. 3 million gallons of gasoline, just 300 yards from the road his tanks were using. Stacked in plain sight, thousands of American jerry cans lined up along the forest. No guards, no buildings, just fuel waiting to be picked up. Peiper drove right past it. He never saw it Because he was looking for something that looked like a German depot, infrastructure, tanks, guards, fences. He didn't understand that American logistics were different, simple, decentralized, efficient. That single mistake, missing that depot, sealed the fate of his entire spearhead. By December 21st, Peiper's advance had stopped in the small town of L'Église and nearby Stoumont, surrounded, out of fuel, out of food, out of options. American Major Hal McCown, captured during the fighting, was brought to Peiper's headquarters. The two men, professional soldiers on opposite sides, talked for hours. Peiper was calm, confident, even charismatic. He believed Germany could still win. But a McCown could see the truth. The German soldiers were exhausted, cold, and hungry. They were wearing captured American clothing for warmth. Their medical stations had no morphine, no antibiotics. Amputations were done with men biting on leather straps. Meanwhile, American wounded received morphine, penicillin, proper bandages. Two different worlds, one fighting with abundance, the other with desperation. On December 23rd, surrounded and out of supplies, Peiper gathered his officers. There was only one option left: abandon everything and break out on foot. At 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve, 800 German soldiers slipped into the snowy forest. They left behind 170 American prisoners, hundreds of their own wounded, and every single vehicle, including the mighty Tiger II tanks. All of them were still in perfect working condition. They just didn't have fuel. Those tanks would later be hauled away by Belgian farmers, monuments to the absurd tragedy of Peiper's advance. After the war, captured German generals were interrogated. One of them, General Hasso von Manteuffels, a commander of the 5th Panzer Army, was brutally honest. He said he had opposed Hitler's plan from the start. 5 million gallons of fuel for 3 entire armies? It was a fantasy. They needed twice that amount just to reach Antwerp. Manteuffel explained how German logistics had already collapsed by 1943. They were using more horses than trucks. A modern mechanized army supplied by horse-drawn wagons. It was insanity. Each horse needed 20 pounds of fodder a day. A single division might require 50 tons of horse feed daily, food that had to be transported over bombed roads under constant air attack. Meanwhile, American trucks rolled day and night, carrying supplies faster and farther than any horse ever could. American fighter bombers destroyed any German convoy that moved in daylight. Fuel trucks, food wagons, ammunition, all burned on the roads, and the factories couldn't replace them. Allied bombers had destroyed Germany's industrial base. When asked when he knew Germany was doomed, Manteuffel didn't hesitate. Kursk, 1943, we could still win battles, but we could no longer win the war. The numbers told the story. America could build more tanks, more planes, more trucks, and feed more soldiers than Germany could even imagine. Logistics, not courage, decided the outcome. SS General Josef Sepp Dietrich, Peiper's superior, was captured after the war. During interrogation, he joked bitterly, "They called us the 6th Panzer Army because by the end we only had 6 panzers left." It was dark humor, but true. His entire army had run out of fuel before reaching its objective. The plan itself depended on capturing American gasoline. That's not strategy, and that's desperation. As Manteuffel later said, you can't plan an offensive around stealing the enemy's supplies. The Ardennes offensive didn't fail because German soldiers weren't brave enough. It failed because they ran out of everything like fuel, ammo, food, medicine. American troops fought hard, yes, but what truly won the battle was logistics. America could resupply faster than Germany could advance. Trucks, trains, depots, all working in harmony. Even surrounded units like Bastogne received airdrops within days. That was the power of a functioning logistics system. April 1945. Germany was collapsing. Peiper sat in an interrogation room describing his campaign to American officers. When they asked about the fuel situation, he explained that Bühlingen had given him enough to reach Stavelot and nothing more. Then one officer showed him a map. "Colonel Peiper, you passed within 300 yards of this depot," the man said. 3 million gallons of gasoline, right here." Peiper looked at the map for a long moment, smiled faintly and said in English, "I'm sorry. No anger, no regret. Just a soldier acknowledging a fatal mistake. That missed depot, those 3 million gallons, could have changed the battle, maybe even prolonged the war." But Peiper didn't see it because he was expecting the wrong thing, and that was Germany's tragedy in miniature, looking for the old world of structured depots and controlled efficiency, while America fought with abundance, flexibility and speed. By January 1945, the Battle of the Bulge was over. Germany had lost 600 tanks, 100,000 men, and its last reserves of fuel. The Allies pushed back across the Rhine, and within months, Germany surrendered. Afterward, historians studied the battle and came to the same conclusion. Germany didn't lose because of poor tactics. They lost because of poor logistics. America's production machine was unstoppable. 400,000 trucks, 300,000 aircraft, 60,000 tanks. 105 million K-Rations in 1944 alone, each one a tiny symbol of industrial might. German soldiers opening captured American rations didn't just see food, they saw the truth. They were fighting an enemy that could feed, clothe, and arm millions indefinitely. They were fighting a system that could lose a depot today and replace it tomorrow. And when they surrendered in 1945, many German POWs gained weight in American camps because they were finally eating regularly for the first time in years. The Battle of the Bulge was Hitler's last throw of the dice, a plan built on wishful thinking and stolen fuel. It delayed the Allies by a few weeks, but cost Germany its last strength. Peiper's column, his panzers, his soldiers, all left stranded because of empty fuel tanks. 3 million gallons were sitting in the snow 300 yards away. He just didn't know where to look. In the end, the war wasn't decided by who had the better tanks or even the bravest soldiers. It was decided by who could keep those tanks moving, keep those soldiers fed, keep the supplies flowing day after day. Germany fought with courage. America fought with capacity. And in modern war, capacity wins. A small brown box, the K-Ration, may have seemed like just a soldier's meal, but inside it was the real secret of Allied victory: organization, industry, logistics. The war was fought with bullets and bomb, but it was won with supply chains.